Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacey and Phil Thompson.
Hey folks, and welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast. This is episode number 6. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacey.
Steve, how are you today?
Have been better, but I'm okay. You may hear me clearing my throat and coughing a little bit, but I'm okay.
All right. Well, let's hope you can make it through the next 29 minutes or so
All right.
of our podcast. Folks, thanks for joining us on this podcast. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help encourage you, to give you some ideas for resources, to enable you to do what you do with your church and hopefully do it better. And we are available to help you in all sorts of different areas. Our company is JSL Solutions, hence the name Church Solutions Podcast. And we mainly do streaming video with streamingchurch.tv. We also do mobile apps, right, Steve?
That is correct, with Church App Live.
ChurchAppLive.com, and then we also have interactive websites that have church management tools, and that is myflock.com. But as we've said here before, Steve and I, and even some other people on our fine team here, go back a long ways when it comes to working with churches, serving churches. Steve has been involved in leadership for many, many years, over 2 decades, as I have. I've actually been a senior pastor, been an executive pastor, been a worship leader, and all sorts of stuff. So the reason I just say all this, folks, is that we have a background that we want to share. We want to help. And so we've got a lot of experience in not just tech stuff, but in church management and working with churches. And we just want to serve. That's our heart. And so we're telling you all this stuff because if we can help you in some way, whether it be your worship team, your volunteers, even your board of directors, we've got some resources and we can help. Right, Steve?
That is exactly right.
Right.
We have been around the block and have suffered slings and arrows, and so we know what not to do and some things to do. We don't know everything, but we can definitely offer some ideas.
Yeah, so that's where our heart is. So, and that's really the heart of our whole company here. So today, Steve, what fine topic are we exploring today?
So the topic for today was staying connected during the summer. Summer's a downtime typically for churches.
It is, and however, I'm of the opinion, having done many, many summers with churches, as you have, I'm of the opinion that you can actually grow in the summer. You can grow your church in the summer, believe it or not, and at the very least, you can use this time to connect with people, reconnect with people, and maybe even, for those who are around, maybe go a little deeper and just establish better relationships. So one of the main tools that we still have today that's very effective when it comes to communicating with for our church members and connecting with people is email. And email really does have it's been around now for a while, and we've got all these social media tools and all these crazy new things coming out. But email still remains kind of the bedrock of really communicating with people.
Yeah, there was I think you probably saw it as well just this week. The posting about, it was basically a survey of what people are interested in, being communicated with, and email's still top of the list.
Yeah, it really
so
is.
So it had all the social media elements and text messages. And at the bottom of the list, what was at the bottom of the list? Do you remember seeing that, Phil? Did you see that? What I'm talking about?
I do, but I can't remember what was at the bottom. I can't remember.
Well, it'll resonate with, I think, everybody. The phone was the bottom of the list. So people don't want to be called. Yeah. So, but they do. They don't mind, or they prefer actually email, or actually it was text message, or social network was in there as well. Mm-hmm. Text messaging and social network were a close second.
Well,
behind email.
Yeah, I could understand that. So what we want to specifically talk today about is emailing your church newsletter. So most churches have some kind of a newsletter that they send out either a hard copy or they do email, we want to encourage you to do it electronically. And I've been around enough, and so have you, Steve, where we've seen some pretty bad church newsletters.
Oh, yeah.
And so some of you are sitting here thinking, well, I'm listening to this, and Phil, that's just crazy because nobody reads my newsletter, or I don't read mine. You know, my church even sends me one, and I don't read it. And so I want to say that you can actually improve that, and it doesn't take that much effort to really improve your newsletter and to really make it look pretty good and actually catch some attention. So we're going to share some tips here on how you can do that and really, I think, get some people to connect with you. So what's the first one on the list there, Steve?
So you talk about, well, let's talk initially, you know, I'm not sure how many churches are doing physical mailers still. I know the churches I've been a part of dropped the mailer many years ago. So you're primarily going to be talking about emailing that out. But so the number one on the list, so this first number one on the list would not be possible. Actually, none of these would be possible. Well, some of them would be possible via a physical mailer. But the move to the email is just so convenient, and so it's less expensive, and it's not messing up people's junk mail and that sort of thing. So anyway, the first one on the list, long way to get to it, is video announcements.
Video announcements, yeah. And by the way, Steve, I'm with you. I mean, newsletters, emailing are the way to go. But I'm sure that there are people listening to me right now that they're getting stuff in the mail because we're just behind. So we do want to recommend that you consider not mailing it out, but actually emailing it. And so let's talk a little bit about video announcements. And for some of you right now, your first thought is, oh, we can't do that. We don't have the equipment, or it's just not good enough. So I want to propose to you that you could actually do a pretty decent video announcement with technology today, with webcams and all the stuff that's out there, YouTube, Vimeo. You could actually, if you organize your thoughts, if it was you or somebody else, you could actually video some announcements, put them up on YouTube, and then you could put the link in your newsletter. And it would improve. It would, again, you don't maybe have to do it every time, but you could do it once in a while. And the only thing you really have to kind of look at is, and again, I know some of you are saying, well, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what, but if you kind of wrote something out and practiced a few times, the more you do it, the better you get. And just, make sure your audio level's good. If you can adjust your lighting in your office or wherever you're doing it from. I mean, every computer now, every laptop has a cam that's built in. There's these little plug-in cams that you can hang on a screen, hang on something, and you can do some things with it. And you can spice things up a little bit by making some announcements and practice a few times. Put a little bit of effort into it, and you'll see some results.
Right. And another thing is the whole video element is just very compelling. It is just really tempting for people to click on the video when they see the little play button in their newsletter. It's really tempting for people to click on the video and say, "Hey, what's this about?"
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, which brings the point of you want to really kind of make sure it's not long and dragged out, and that you just really condense it as best you can. Because, and this is the problem that every church has, and that is announcements. So even if it's Sunday morning or whatever, there's this battle for announcements. Everybody has something going on and they want it announced. And the problem is church announcements can get really long, boring. And we've talked about this before. We'll probably do another podcast on how you can improve your Sunday morning church announcements. But the same is true when it comes to doing your little video announcements here. You want to make sure you condense it and try to get the information out and don't ramble on.
So what's a time frame that you would target a video announcement for?
I really wouldn't do it more than 2 minutes, personally.
Okay, and that may be even on the long side too, right?
Could be. It could be, depending on if you've got good information. If you've got, if you can keep the ball rolling, but you don't want to spend 2 minutes on one topic,
Right.
So. Or even more than a minute. I mean, you really want to keep it down. And you could also point people to maybe a document or some area on your website. You could point people, for more information on this, go to, and then they can click on it and they could actually see text and they could actually see a lot more detailed information, which was one of the points I was going to get to later. But getting back to this video announcements thing, it really, you're right. And now let's just mention this, Steve, while we're on the subject of emails. You can't really embed a video in email. Am I right about that?
That is true. There is no way to actually embed the video in the email. I mean, you can attach some videos and emails, but you definitely don't want to do that. And there's no way to embed the video so that it plays right in the email. Though all of the emails you receive will be a link to a video to a website where the video will play.
So something like YouTube, and the reason I talk embedding is if you were to do your little video and then upload it to YouTube, you get the option of taking, YouTube gives you the option of a link that people could click on somewhere else, or you could get some embed code from YouTube and drop it on your website, a page on your website, or some other platform, but you can't drop the embed code in on your newsletter body.
Right, yeah.
So,
it won't work within the body of the newsletter.
But what you can do is what I do, and a lot of people do, is they'll take an image that you put an image in your newsletter, whatever that image is, and then you can hyperlink the image. You can hyperlink the image with a link from YouTube or Vimeo or wherever else that the video is hosted on.
Right.
And so, which kind of brings me to the next point. Are we okay with this? Should we move on from the video announcements?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. I mean, the image you take is typically a frame from the video with the little play button embedded over it. That's the typical practice for doing that.
Yeah, you can do that, and you could just go to YouTube and hit, if you've got a screen, what do they call it, a screen, I don't want to say screensaver, but a screen, you could
screen capture, yeah,
screen capture there, and you can do that. So let's talk for just a second about graphics. I don't know if I put this on the list, Steve, but one of the ways you can spice up your newsletter is by using some graphics.
Right.
And graphics really make a lot. Pictures, maybe pictures of, if it's somebody, one of the staff people or one of the volunteers wants to talk about what they're doing, you could get a picture of them, or you could get graphics today from all sorts of different places. And some of them you can get for free, and you can, download a graphic for free, and you can put that, you can resize it and drop it in your newsletter. And again, you can either hyperlink to something, or you can just put a little text by it talking about it. Today, with Facebook and all these other places, the ones that get the most clicks, the posts that get the most clicks are the ones that have graphics.
Right. And we talked about this actually before we went on the air here, saying people don't read anymore, right? Yeah. And so what you're going to want to do is create a very scannable document, and the graphics will be, a key element of that. So you create typically what people do is they'll scan, they'll see the pictures, they go, oh, that looks interesting. Okay, what's the subject? And then it'll draw them into the, into the articles. So if you didn't have the pictures or the headlines, or you haven't broken up your content into sections into short paragraphs, then it looks like a bunch of text, and it doesn't draw the people in. So adding the pictures is really good, and offsetting big headlines and very short paragraphs, I think, is important in putting the newsletter together.
Yeah, it really is. And the next question might be for some people, well, where do I get my graphics, Phil? Well, there's several ways you can pay for the graphics with like iStock. What's another one, Steve, that I know you've used?
I know iStock is one of the more popular.
But it's expensive. It's gone up too.
Yeah, it used to be very affordable, and now it's gotten a little more expensive.
Unsplash. There's one called, I think, I'm trying to think, Unsplash. Unsplash, which I believe is free. And so Unsplash is an option. There's a place I think called Gratis. It's spelled GRATISO GRAPHY. Gratiso Graphy, or I don't know how to pronounce the darn thing, but it's you just go to GRATISOGRAPHY.com. It's gratis graphy or whatever, and those are free. But if you just do a Google search for free, what the free images
or free free graphics,
that
sort of thing.
There are some out there that you can get that you could use. Or I used to have a guy at one of my churches that loved photography, and he just went out and took a lot of pictures. It was kind of a hobby, and then he would use these pictures in newsletters and even stuff on the website. So I think you hit the nail right on the head, Steve, and that is you've got to make it so that it is readable. So graphics and making sure your text is consistent and not running all together. You've got decent paragraphs and all that. So
yeah. Actually, if you Google the free graphics, there's actually some write-ups on some recommendations for graphic sites as well.
Yeah, so consider using graphics. I mean, it really will, will make a difference. People be more inclined to read what you got. All right, so what's the next thing on the list on how we can help people build a better newsletter?
Excuse me. So, a special message from the pastor?
I think this is good. And again, you could do this with a video. If you wanted to take the time to do this, you could do a video and upload it to YouTube or something, and then again link to it. Or just have the pastor write a short little thing, whatever it might be, whatever may be something he's talking about, maybe a new series he or she is going to kick off, maybe just even a little thought for the day or thought for the week. Where the person actually, the people getting the newsletter actually they're going to get something from the senior pastor. Or maybe if its senior pastor is not always available, maybe one of the other leaders could do something. And again, you don't want it real long or anything. Or if you are going to make it long, let's say they have a blog, and you don't have to put the whole blog on the newsletter, but you could put a piece of the blog, maybe an opening couple sentences to the blog, and then link to the pastor's blog.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
I think a personal message is also, just the personal, informal side from the pastor is valuable as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too.
So again, putting something like this in here, you can do this. You can organize it and kind of have it right down the list of different things going on. All right. So what's next?
So next, we have details on events.
So there's lots of things happening even in the summertime. My church has lots of crazy things happening. And one of the things that we say when we're making announcements Sunday morning in front of people is we'll headline the event, but we won't give a lot of details. We might say this event's going on. We got a free concert coming up Saturday night at 7:30. You can get your tickets, or if you're selling tickets or you're doing something else for it to raise money, you could say, hey, go to our website for more details. And so on the newsletter, you could actually put a few more details in that people aren't necessarily going to get from just a Sunday morning announcement. You could actually go into a little more detail. And again, use links. Use hyperlinks or whatever to direct people to where the details would be on the website.
Right.
So you don't want to get too detail oriented where it's just a long paragraph and people get lost. But just enough information to get people what they need, and then perhaps a link or something that will give them even more.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned kind of earlier, I think it's important to kind of layer the newsletter with just kind of broad, with images and headlines and then short paragraphs, and then the more you get into an article, the more detailed it becomes. And then at the lowest point would be click here for more info that takes you off to a full write-up on something on another website.
Yeah, I think it's important to do that because again, you don't want to bury people with stuff, but you want to make it available. All right, so moving on here, where are we at?
So you got Song of the Month?
Song of the Month.
What is Song of the Month?
This is an idea that I stole from somebody else, and I think it's kind of a good idea. And that is, if you're, and again, every church is different. We know we have different cultures here, different churches that are part of what we do as a company. So there's a variety of different people, but usually a worship leader will introduce a new song once in a while. Some of them will do it once a month. They'll introduce a new song. Maybe once every 2 months they'll introduce a new song. I've had some worship leaders that would introduce a new song every week, and I think that's maybe a little bit too much. But that was something that we did for a while. I used to do that with Ken. Ken at your church, and so.
Yeah.
But so if your worship leader is going to introduce a new song, why not put it in a newsletter and give people a little heads up? And so that way, if there are some people that really love the musical part of a church service, they really get into the music, and every church is different. But so there are people that just love the worship at your church. And so why not give them a taste of the new song coming up? And again, you could link it if there's a YouTube video that somebody else has done on it. You could link it, and you could say, "Hey, we got a new song coming up here in a couple weeks. Here's what it is." And then when people actually show up for the church service, those who actually were interested in that song are going to know it. And because I was a worship leader for years, and I found, when you do a new song, the congregation obviously doesn't know it, or at least most people don't. And so everybody just kind of stands there if they're standing and just kind of looks, and it can be a little awkward depending on the culture of your church and depending on what you guys do at your church. But usually it would take 2 or 3 times of doing that song where people would catch on and start singing, and if you're a worship leader, it's really exciting to see people participating. But depending on what kind of style you do, if you're a worship leader and everybody's just kind of standing there looking at you or looking bored, it's kind of frustrating, or a little bit.
So would you put the lyrics of the song in there, or?
Yeah, it just depends on your newsletter. If you have a lot of information in your newsletter, you may not want to put all the lyrics in. You might want to just put the title of the song. And again, I would encourage you to link to a YouTube video, because chances are, unless it's original music, chances are it's probably on YouTube or somewhere that somebody has done. And you could say, "Hey, listen to this. We're going to do it in a very similar fashion. May not be exactly the same, but similar." And you could give people an opportunity to preview it. Or if you really want to get extreme, if you've got the time and you got the staff, if the worship leader wants to actually do an unplugged version and record it, there you go. If you really want to do that, and then you could have your own team, or at least maybe the worship leader himself or herself, do it and record it and stick it in there. So again, just a little.
You also link to the artist.
Yeah,
I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense. That's a good way to introduce a new song, rather than Sunday morning, we've got a new song and here's the lyrics. Yeah, that would be.
Everybody looks
around. Good idea.
So it is. I wish I had thought of it. Somebody else thought of it, but I stole the idea. But I think it's a good idea. So again, just something you could do to help your worship service, and again, provide people some interesting content in your newsletter. Because again, what we're saying here is you need to make your content interesting, and you do need to put a little bit of effort into it. But once you start doing this on a regular basis, you'll find it won't take you that much time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
So last on the list we had was something funny.
Something funny. Okay, so one of the things that I discovered a long time ago, and I'm on social media, not as much as people think I am, but I am. I have a Facebook account, and I used to put, when I first started doing Facebook, gosh, in fact, I was even looking at some of my old posts back in 2007 or something, and I would put these serious posts in. Nothing dead serious or real heavy, but I would put a post in, maybe a Bible verse or something going on, But my personality is that of I have a lot of humor in my life. Some people would say I'm sarcastic. I think that's a spiritual gift, right? Sarcasm.
You are the master. If
so
you're not following Phil Thompson, you ought to look him up on Facebook.
Well, yeah. So,
I was assuming that you were getting these from somewhere else, because you weren't quite that funny in person, but you're definitely funny on Facebook. Yeah, you come up with some great stuff.
I some of it I modify, some of it I steal, some of it's my own stuff. But the bottom line is people like humor. And so you've got a couple options here when it comes to your newsletter. You could put in a funny comic, and there are lots and lots of funny comic strips out there. You just go to Facebook and look around a little bit, and if somebody's got something, I would certainly. You don't want to get into something controversial, but you definitely, there's some church humor. There's some stuff out there. I mean, you could just Google church humor or something, and there's some good-natured humor out there. One of the things that's real popular is church signs. There's somebody out there that's put a website together that gets these images of churches around the country. The funny things they put on their signs. Some of these churches have these signs where they can change out what's going on every week, and usually they put a sermon topic on there or something every week. It's changed out so people see it as they drive by. Well, some of these things are hilarious. People don't think when they put something up, and I don't have an example off the top of my head, but there's some funny stuff out there.
A friend in our small group gave me a book. Someone wrote or put together a book that was just church signs, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, there's also bulletin bloopers, which have been around for a long time, but they're still funny. I mean, things in a bulletin, that are put in the bulletin of somebody's bulletin for their church, and it comes off completely wrong or crazy or funny. It's just hilarious. So you might consider putting something humorous in your newsletter, maybe at the very end of it or something or whatever that will get people, again, just put a smile on somebody's face. That would be something that you could do. So the other thing I want to mention here before we go away, and that is, what can you use for a newsletter? Some of you are saying, well, we don't do a new electronic newsletter, but we're interested in this. How can we do this? Well, we have something called myflock.com that does have a newsletter feature in it, a newsletter tool. And so you could use myflock.com and input people's emails in there, and you could send the emails out using myflock.com, right, Steve?
Right, exactly.
And you can put images in there, and you can put links in there and all that stuff.
But you would need a MyFlock account for that. But the other one that's really popular that we integrate with is MailChimp.
MailChimp. So MailChimp.com.
Yes, MailChimp is a great tool. It's been it specializes in doing email and primarily emails and newsletters, and they have a free option. So just looking at it right here, you can have up to 2,000 subscribers and send up to 12,000 emails a month for free.
Wow!
So
yeah,
it's a great deal, and they've got a really good publishing system and an even better tracking system.
Analytics. Yeah, there's lots of analytics and tracking that you might be interested in. And that's good because then you can begin to see, okay, how many people actually, open my email that I sent them? How many people? And if they're not a lot of people opening it, then maybe you could do something to improve it. And actually, they'll give you tips on how to improve.
Or if they're not opening it, then it's a matter of your subject was not compelling enough for them to click on it. So there's some guidance on creating better subject lines or subjects for your emails so that people will open them. And then, as you mentioned, it will show what clicks took place. So as you have the embedded links within your newsletter, you can see, oh, wow, this article that I did on whatever got a lot of clicks. So that hit, gives you feedback, let you know what's working and what's not.
So it's a great tool. There's other tools out there, Constant Contact, which is not free. In fact, my church was using Constant Contact, and I came on board and they said, why are we paying $49 a month for this where we could use MailChimp for free? And they're like, oh no. So we started to use MailChimp for free and saved us, I think it was $49 a month, but, and again, Constant Contact, I mean, depends on what you need it for. There's tools in Constant Contact that maybe it would be worth it, depending on what you're doing. But, so there's lots of tools out there you could use. And the nice thing about MailChimp is they have some really nice templates, and you can custom the templates. And again, it's not going to take you that much time once you set it up to do it. You can do it every week. And one more thing before we go, we're out of time, but my next suggestion when it would become to using your newsletter to connect with people, make sure you send it out consistently. You might only do it once a month. I would recommend you do it at least twice a month, maybe once a week, if possible. And again, be consistent at it and put a little bit of effort into it, and you'll see some results.
Right, exactly. And it's an opportunity for people to share with others, so you send it out to those that have been coming, and they can forward that newsletter on and say, hey, this is the church I go to. Here's the nature of our church, and send them the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Steve, we're out of time.
All righty. Well, it's been great.
Thank you very much for your time, Steve. And folks, thank you. And by the way, we'd love to hear from you. Support@streamingchurch.tv is one of the ways you can get a hold of us. And the other thing, too, is if you go to iTunes, you can subscribe to our podcast. It's Church Solutions Podcast. So go to iTunes and subscribe to it, and also give us a review. We'd love to hear from you. We need to get some reviews, and maybe we'll show up a little more on whatever their iTunes search thing is. But give us some feedback. We'd love to hear positive as well as negative. And if it's negative, I'll just blame it on Steve.
There you go.
All right. Hey, folks, seriously, have yourselves a great day. Thank you for listening to Church Solutions, and tune in next week. We'll cover another topic. Have a great day.